Welcome back to another Spirit Island video. In this video, we're going to be continuing my tier list discussion. Now, starting off, I forgot to post on Tier Maker in the last video what the tier list looks like. So this is our F tier, which I mentioned in the first video, and then this is the D tier that I forgot. We have Madness at the end, Shroud, Wildfire, Shadows Foreboding, Devouring Teeth, Immense, and finally Bringer. And I will remember to post the C tier at the end of this video. Okay, looking at C tier, we have challenging tier. Now, this is spirits that will introduce more challenges for the team. This tier is for spirits who have some restrictions in how they play. They have moments that shine, especially when placed in the right combo, but are inconsistent when outside those combos. They consistently need other spirits to cover their weaknesses, or they will hinder the team's progress. Spirits in this tier need a slight boost to their power to reach the baseline spirits or B tier. Let's get started. Once again, I'm going to be having my criteria loaded next to each spirit. Starting at number 55, we have base shifting memory. Now, why is shifting memory at the bottom of C tier? And this is a spirit that's actually raised up across my tier lists over the last couple months. And the reason why it's raising up is because I'm beginning to see the combo potential in memory. But the reason why it's down here in C tier is it's a major power spirit that is inconsistent. Now, generally, major power strategies are inconsistent, and that's because you're relying on that major to provide you a lot of power. We saw this with Bringer. Memory, though, unlike Bringer, it trades that fear for defense and also has the ability to give out elements more consistently. And well, elements as well as power cards, and then I guess like Bringer, it can look at fear cards, but basically memory has a larger support role than Bringer does. Um, but it does lack in that consistency. You're relying on those majors. You can't really play minors. I mean, you have three plays, but it just whenever I play memory, I can't make it work because your tools just don't do enough. Like you need to end up drawing majors at some point to deal with your lands, and then if you're rushing down bottom track, you just don't have the energy. So like usually you're looking like this, right? Two energy, three plays, but like two energy is not enough to play majors. So unless you really high roll on the majors, that the consistency part, you're going to have a rough game with memory. Now, luckily, there's those really broken combos like memory plus snake, just can completely tear through a lot of high difficulty adversaries, and that's why I think memory at least needs to be up in C tier. Matchups across all singles level 6 adversaries. There's a couple matchups with memory that are fairly challenging, but once again, it's all about that major draft. If you're playing against Russia and you high roll Sleep and Never Waken, let's pull out that major for people to see what it looks like. I'll have to click the button here. You're playing Russia and you high roll Sleep and Never Waken. This is that one major that just decimates explorers. You're going to destroy the entire adversary, and it's not going to matter. But if you whiff on your major draw, you're going to die to Russia. And a lot of adversaries, it's going to be problematic. The number of spirit combos and the number of high spirit combos quite high. Memory is able to give out those power cards. Memory can give out elements. And that's going to be very advantageous for the team. And then, like I said, high power spirit combos, it just absolutely decimates with a spirit like Snake. And I'm sure there's other high powered combos that I'm not too familiar with. I'm sure it's very overpowered with like a Fractured Days as well. The ability to give out support, I just talked about that. The ability to tank, memory really can't tank. However, it's all going to come down to those majors. If you pick up like Rumbling Earthquake, that is that one major that can completely clear out the board here. Tons of damage. You might be able to tank several Scotland escalations and then completely decimate all of those built up lands. Um, Ability to carry or take over the game, it's very possible. I mean, if you high roll cast down, you can threshold that card. I believe it's like turn 4 or something like that. It might even be turn 3, but like the fact that you have that opportunity where if you pick up that one major that will win the whole team the game, that raised the stock of the spirit. How much blight does the spirit take on average? It's going to depend on the majors. Usually I see it taking upwards of around 3 to 5 blight. Of course, like I said, dependent on the majors. Can the spirit create isolation pockets? I would say probably no. Once again, it's major reliance, but your starting four cards just don't impact the board, and same with your innates. So your ability to create pockets is unlikely. How much fear does the spirit generate? Generates a little bit. Is the spirit edge case proof? Somewhat. You do have that defend 3 here, which helps against a lot of those ravages that are just so like a lot of ravages, like Explorer Town. This is going to be 3 damage. So defend 2, there's that chance where defend 2 cannot be enough to defend against the 3 damage if they get like a +1 damage event. So having a defend 3 is usually seen as like edge case proof, edge case proofs these types of ravages. Um, but more importantly, because of your special rule here, it says long ages of knowledge. It says whenever you would forget a power card, you may discard it instead. That allows you to pay for events quite easily with the spirit, and those payment events can be very problematic for spirits that can't pay for them. But like memory is almost always able to pay for these, which is very advantageous. Um, how many boards are viable for the spirits? Not too sure. I don't have that much experience with memory. And can the spirit clear its board? Once again, dependent on the major. This is a spirit that's growing on me. I want to be able to play it a little bit more just to see what else I'm missing. I have a feeling that the spirit may be raising up across the ranks in the future. Let's take a look at the next spirit on my list. Looking at number 54, we have Base Lightning Swift Strike. And you'll remember that in the previous video, I talked about why I don't like the immense aspect. Luckily, I really like Base Lightning. And the reason is because Base Lightning is going to enter that reclaim loop at 2 energy and 4 plays, throwing down 4 cards every turn. But why do I like this? This is very, it seems very boring. You're entering this early reclaim loop. You don't have much choices. I like it because you're always giving out that Lightning's Boon. And Lightning's Boon, when played on the right spirit, can completely change the game. And this is a card that Immense can't be playing. So the fact that Base Lightning is playing it all the time means Lightning's ability to support is going to raise a lot higher than Immense. Now you're not going to be able to carry as hard as Immense, but your ability to support is a lot higher. Consistency, I find this to be a lot more consistent than Immense because you're not relying on majors. You have plenty of giraffes because you're reclaiming a lot in the early game. So your consistency is there. Now, the matchups across all single level 6 adversaries, you're going to have some bad matchups. And pretty much all Lightnings have this problem. There's some matchups, some adversaries that just can get through Lightning. Good example would be like Russia, where like you have to be playing your Raging Storm, but you just can't afford it. Number of spirit combos. Lightning Spoon is essential for spirit combos. Spirit combos like with Stake, I love that combo, or with Keeper, or with River. These are all spirits that can make use of that Lightning Spoon. Or like, trying to think, Dances Up Earthquake, right? Using that right innate fast is huge. Number of high spirit combos. Once again, I look at River, a spirit that can play Boon of Vigor. You fix all of your energy problems the entire game, and in exchange, you're going to give River Lightning's Boon. And now River's innate is going to be fast, so now you can be playing ahead of the tempo, or playing at +1 tempo. The number of high spirit combos, I just talked about that. The ability to support, I just talked about that with Lightning's Boon. The ability to tank, this is not a spirit that can tank well. Your damage is fairly limited. So once buildings and explorers get built up on your board, you're going to have trouble dislodging them, and you can't really play majors. The ability to carry or take over the game, not going to happen when you're playing Lightning. How much blight does the spirit take? I would say upwards of between 3 and 5. It's going to depend on the matchup and also how lucky you are with the Han events. How much fear does the spirit generate? It generates a decent amount of fear. Not that much, though. I mean, I think you're getting 1 from Shatter, 1 from Harbingers, and then possibly a couple other from your innates, and then an extra probably from Shatter. So I think it's like 3 to 4 a turn. Of course, if you draw like Rain of Blood or one of those very powerful miners in the deck that generate fear, then these numbers can skyrocket, though. Can the spirit create isolation pockets? The answer is yes. And lightning, this is one of lightning's best tools, and that's because you have shatter homesteads, which is destroy a town, as well as thundering destruction, which destroys another town. So on turn 2, you have 2 fast town destructions. So you can combo with this with a spirit like Trickster, wherever Trickster is, Trickster, Darkness, these spirits that need to create that pocket, or Fangs, for instance, and you can help aid their game like that. How many boards are viable for this spirit? I would say a decent amount. Pretty much you just want 2 sacred sites on your board such that those sacred sites can touch all of your lands, and that's mainly for this innate here. And then after that, you just jump to other boards. And can the spirit clear its board? Most of the time, it cannot. A lot of times, the board is just going to be built up, and you're going to be generating a lot of fear playing your cards, and the goal is to eventually get to 6 plays. This is a spirit that has been around C tier for quite some time. I will never see it drop to D tier. I don't see it going much higher in C tier. It's like, I'd say, classic C tier spirit. Some bad matchups, takes a lot of blight, can support the team. Is there are some combos where it's well off in. Let's look at the next spirit. Looking at number 53, we have Ocean's Hungry Grasp. Now, this is probably a spirit that a lot of people are going to disagree with. And I get this a lot. A lot of people think this spirit is very strong. And I'm going to tell you why it's not. The first reason is consistency. This is not a spirit that can consistently perform well when placed on any team. There are going to be matchups, for instance, Habsburg Livestock, where the edge case explorer occurs. And unless you're on the right team, you're not going to have an answer to that edge case. Now you might be saying, what's the edge case? The edge case is, I'm over here. I've got to actually put my starting towns as well. I believe it's like this and this. One in land 2, and yes, so it is. Guessed it right. So if we're playing Habsburg Livestock, and the edge case is if this wetlands comes up, right? After this land builds on C8, I have no way to deal with that land. It's likely, well, I guess in this specific case, I could gather here into C5. But if I'm playing multiplayer, there's likely an adjacent town. So this is going to be a loss condition right here. That means I'm adding a loss condition blight almost always because there will be an adjacent town on C8. Of course, I'm assuming more adjacent boards. The edge case is what if that land comes up again as the first stage too? Yes, it's mountain. But assume this is wetlands. This land has taken a loss condition, and now it's going to build Ravage again, and it's going to cost 2 more loss conditions. Ocean lacks consistency because when edge case explorers happen, when your inland lands come up, you just have no tools to deal with them. And Ocean is weird in that it scales with the player count, or I guess it doesn't really scale. Once the player count gets to 5 or 6, you really lack a lot of energy because of the drowning mechanic, which means you're not able to draft majors as easily, which means you're going to have fewer ability to clear lands like C8. Now, this is where you have to be paired up with the right teammate to help solve C8, but now you're relying on another spirit to solve your problems or to solve your portion of your board. And that's something that's going to knock Ocean. There are spirits on this tier list, especially in the higher up, that don't need help. They can do everything and more. Ocean is a spirit that needs someone to hold its hand to cross that finish line. And that's really one of the main reasons why I rate Ocean very low. Matchup across all single level 6 adversaries. There's a couple matchups that are pretty brutal with Ocean. I just talked about Habsburg Livestock here. Another one is Russia, where if these lands get a ton of explorers, you just can't really deal with them. Like with Russia, the board is going to look like this, right? So now you have, if this land comes up on C8, this beast pretty much can't be saved, so you're only left with one other beast. A lot of times I see Ocean players lose both of their beasts, and then it becomes a problem for the team. I'm sure there's other bad matchups. I think Sweden is another one where if like your inland lands come up early on and those are your town city lands, you just have no answers and you just take like 5 to 10 blight and just basically lose the team on the blight count. Number of spirit combos. This is a spirit that has a lot of spirit combos. Um, some notable ones would be like Bringer, whenever Bringer damages, it can push stuff into the ocean. Another good one would be River. I love Fang's combo, Wandering Voice, Sun. There are so many excellent combos with this spirit. Many Minds is another one. I said Fangs, Sunbright. Um, this is a combo-oriented spirit. The number of high-powered spirit combos. There's only a couple. The main one is the Finder combo. I'm not going to get into um, the specifics about this combo because it's really confusing. But pretty much, Finder is able to like bring Ocean's presence into inland lands. Really strange. But there are some 6/6 comps that can be beaten with Finder plus Ocean. The ability to give out support. Ocean gives out quite a lot of support. The main one is Tidal Boon. Giving a spirit 2 energy, a talent push, and Dahan movement is amazing. Um, I know some players state that the Ocean in play rule is how Ocean is supporting the team, but I personally find it to be not as impactful as other players make it out to be. Um, the difference between pushing something and killing something is very minimal, and that's something that a lot of players I don't think they understand that, especially a lot of newer players when they see a bunch of buildings on their board and then they push it into the ocean, right? They're like, "Oh, it's killing the buildings. That's excellent." But really, if you just push them to another land, it's still solving your original problem. And that's all you really need to do. Obviously, killing is better than just pushing, but um, the difference is not as big as a lot of players make it out to be. Okay, the ability to get out support, talked about that. Ability to tank. Ocean is not a spirit that can tank. The more things that end up inland, the harder the game's going to be for the spirits. The ability to carry or take over the game. This is not a spirit that's going to carry. This is a spirit that is just going to be on its board. It's going to spread to adjacent boards. It's going to hope someone else comes onto its board to solve its problems. How much blight does the spirit take? Most of the time, it's at least 3. I've seen the spirit take upwards of 10 to 15. It just comes down to the explorers and what other spirits can do on your board. If you're playing with like a stone and a fractured daze, um, it's going to be a bit of a mess on your board. Can spirit create isolation pockets? Not really, just because you can't deal with your inland lands. Now you could get lucky if you draft like fast disruption, like called isolation or maybe enticing splendor. But most of the times your inland lands are just going to get built up. The spirit does generate quite a lot of fear with that left innate, plus the 2 fear from grasping tide, and you kill a lot of buildings in the slow. Is the spirit edge case proved? Nope. And I just talked about that earlier, where if your inland lands come up multiple times, you're going to have a very bad day. How many boards are viable for the spirit? There's a couple. I'm not an Ocean master. I've played a lot of games of Ocean, but I couldn't tell you which is the best, which is the worst board. I know some people say board D is great on Ocean, but then I've also seen that be like a terrible board. It really just depends. The reason why board D could be a terrible board, I mentioned it, is if because both of your wetlands are on the coast, you only can affect really 1 or 2 land types. So I think this isn't really a good board for Ocean, or at least it's not as good as people make it out to be. And can the spirit clear its board? Almost never. There are cases where like you draft cast down or you draw that right major, but a lot of times your board is just going to be built up and you're just going to have to hope someone's going to help you. Looking at number 52, we have base, river surges, and sunlight. Now, this is a spirit that I've already talked about a little bit when I mentioned the lightning combos. So consistency. River is a very consistent spirit, and that's because you're rushing towards that 5 plays, and you're going to enter that reclaim loop. Just like Lightning's entering that reclaim loop, so are you, and you're playing that Boon of Vigor every turn, and this is going to hyper support your team. So the ability to play Boon of Vigor consistently throughout the game is why this spirit is where it's at. Without Boon of Vigor, this spirit would definitely drop. Matchups across all level 6 adversaries. River has a couple bad matchups, mainly England. You don't generate a lot of fear, and your big cannon, your 2 damage to all invaders, doesn't really work against England. So you have that bad matchup there, and there's a couple bad explorers like into Prussia or Sweden that can be very problematic. The number of spirit combos, because you have this energy boon of vigor, you fit into pretty much every spirit comp. This alone makes the spirit very, very powerful. One of my new favorite combos is having Boon of Vigor with an Earthquake player, and that Earthquake player uses that big right innate big eruption where they have 8 cards in play. But Boon of Vigor is going to give them +8 energy. It's quite hilarious. Number of high spirit combos I already talked about. The Boon of Vigor River with Lightning's Boon. I'm sure there's other high powered combos too. Ability to give out support, I just talked about that. Ability to tank. River really can't tank. It's more of a control spirit. You're trying to disrupt invaders, throw them into a couple lands, and then use your massive flooding to completely wipe out that land. The ability to carry or take over the game. River's not really going to be able to do that. You pretty much have a solution to a single land every turn. So you're just using this to solve one problem, and you're using your wash away to solve another problem. You're not going to be drafting majors, so leaning into majors is just not really viable for the spirit, and that's usually how spirits can take over the game. How much blight does the spirit take on average? Usually it's around 3 plus. It's going to depend on the adversary, the matchups. But yeah, so usually it's flipping that blight card. How much fear does the spirit generate? Very little. It generates a lot of fear once you enter that mid to late game, and that's because you're killing everything. But in the early game, you're generating pretty much no fear. Ability to create isolation pockets, very possible with the spirit. You have that early massive flooding to push things, as well as your wash away and your flash floods. Is the spirit edge case proof? I mean, I wouldn't say it is. Um, a lot of your damage is in the slow, so if the invaders ever get +1 HP, then you're gonna have issues killing invaders with that innate. In addition, you only have sun and water on your cards. Well, I guess you have earth, plant, and animal, but you're lacking the moon, air, and fire. And even then, you can't even forget Boon of Vigor. So if those specific events come up, you just really can't pay for them. You just lack a diverse set of elements. How many boards are viable for the spirit? Only one or two. You can play on multiple others, but the spirit gets a huge boost when it's playing on board A. Board A is your board to play on. And can the spirit clear its board? Yes, it can, though it is going to be dependent on the adversary. Pretty much England is the one that gives the spirit a lot of issues. Sometimes Scotland, but into Habsburg, Prussia, France. These are spirits where you should be able to completely board clear and also support the team. Looking at number 51, we have another lightning aspect, this time looking at Pandemonium. Now, Pandemonium is just like base lightning, except you're going to lose that damage innate, and instead you're going to get this fear innate. And the fear is absurd on this thing. If you get the second tier, that's generating 4 fear a turn. The second tier on your base lightning is only generating a max of 2 fear. So this is generating 4 fear plus the strife, so you can actually kill the buildings in the counterattack. So you're generating like 6 fear with this innate, which is absurd. Now, if you max it out, that gets you 13 fear. In solo, that is 2 fear cards. That is so absurd. And that's why this spirit I think is just outright better than base lightning. The only advantage base lightning has is it's able to create pockets easier, but the fear that this panda gets I think is just so much superior than base lightning, and that's why I have it here. The fear is going to increase its playability into a lot of matchups. Into Scotland, it's so important. Into Sweden, into France, it's just so much stronger. I think it's a little bit weaker. Well, I was going to say a little bit weaker into England, but actually that might be incorrect. Just because the fear may allow you to just bulldozer through the fear deck and help the team that way. But this is the version of Lightning that I like playing. I don't like playing this base Lightning just because I get really bored. Pandemonium, it just feels so much fun to throw down like 4 or 7 fear a turn. It's just so satisfying to do that. Looking at number 50 here, we have another lightning aspect. This one is wind. Now, wind is going to replace lightning's swiftness of lightning, special roll, and it's going to give us another innate. And this another innate is going to give lightning as well as another spirit a slow to power fast. And this is happening every turn. So now, when you enter that reclaim loop, you can play Lightning's Boon, give that to one spirit, and then you give your Wind innate to another spirit. So you're giving out so much slow to fast. In addition, Wind could give +1 range to that spirit if you have the 3 air. And then if you have this third tier, you also give them push explorers. And then the final tier lets you repeat the innate. Um, what this innate is going to do for you is it's going to increase your combo potential, increase your number of spirit combos, and it's going to slightly make the spirit a little bit more challenging to play because you can't always throw all of your powers slow to fast. I think if you like playing lightning, I would either play wind or the previous aspect I just talked about, Pandemonium, because I think both of those are just outright improvements compared to base lightning. They're just upgrades that just add a little bit more complexity to the spirits. Looking at number 49, we have the first NI aspect on the list, and that is Thunderspeaker Warrior. This is such a disappointment that I have to put this here, but it is. It's just a straight up nerf to base Thunderspeaker. It really cripples the whole spirit. What it's going to do is it's going to replace your right innate here, and you're going to get an extra Dahan and an Incarna, and you're going to lose your manifestation for Call to Bloodshed. So let's talk about why this spirit isn't good. Um, Consistency. So you're losing manifestation, and manifestation was the way that you were able to deal with those large built up lands. Well, now you can't, which hurts all of your matchups where you needed to be dealing a lot of damage. So, Habsburg or England, you have these large built up lands, Scotland, and now you just can't deal with them. In addition, that right innate that allowed you to kill buildings so easily, now it's this very clunky, just single damage, and it's just not good at all. Now Warrior is going to perform better in those matchups where you need control, like Prussia or Sweden. You can push the Incarna around, damaging explorers, taking them out. But overall, this is just a weaker spirit, I think, compared to base Thunderspeaker. I have already briefly talked about those level 6 adversaries. Those level 6 matchups are quite underwhelming with Warrior. The number of spirit combos. This is not a spirit that's going to be comboing with other spirits. Like, look at your cards. Like, none of these actually support the team. You have a ton of Dahan movement, but that's mainly so that you can do stuff with your Warrior, your Red Innate, as well as your Call to Bloodshed. You're not really going to be donating Words of Warning out. My guess is there should always be a Dahan Ravage on your board, or at least on like or at least on the lands that you're covering. Number of high spirit combos. This is a spirit that's I can't think of one, and maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I'm missing something, but I can't really see breaking this into a 6/6. And unless you're like hyper powering it up with like fractured green stuff, that this thing is going to hold its own. Like if I randomized this into a 6/6, I don't think this is going to win. Ability to tank. You lost manifestation. You have no way to deal a ton of damage. Before, you could play with like a finder and they can throw everything in one land, and then you can do manifestation for like 25 damage. But like now you can't. The ability to carry or take over the game, it's still there because your G1 is still broken. If you draft Vigor of the Breaking Dawn or another really powerful major that's Dahan based, you can take over the game. But if you don't draw that major, you're not going to be able to. How much blight does the spirit take? Usually 3 plus. It's going to be dependent on the matchup, the explorers, stuff like that. Can the spirit create isolation pockets? Kind of. Um, your ability to move the Incarna around allows you to do a lot of single points of damage, but killing those inland lands, especially if you have a lot of built up buildings there, it's going to be fairly challenging. How much fear does the spirit generate? Not much. Thunder Speaker gets a reputation of not generating a lot of fear, and that's because you're mainly getting fear via the Dahan counterattack as well as manifestation. Well, now you just don't have that. I think across all of your cards, you're only generating one fear here. I mean, you do get fear when you're doing the Han counter attacks, but losing that manifestation is just it's just massive. Is the spirit edge case proof? Nope. If those bad disease events come up that just throw disease down on your board and kill your Dahan, you're going to lose a lot of power. There is a game recently where one of our players was playing Warrior Thunderspeaker, and they lost two Dahan in a single turn just to random events that they had no counterplay to. It was the one that adds a random disease and also turns a Dahan into a town. And they went from having a stable board to needing several spirits to support them to stabilize. How many boards are viable for the spirit? It's going to be, I mean, Thunder Speaker is going to depend based on where the Dahan are located. Luckily, you do have a lot of Dahan movement, so you can move your Dahan around. But if you're playing on like board H, where there's just a million adjacencies, you may have issues. Like if you have Dahan all the way up here in H8, and then you need to get Dahan over here in H3, you might not be able to do that. So Spirit is going to be fairly board dependent. I think like maybe board E you're fine. Probably board D. I'm not sure. I don't play much Thunder Speaker anymore, but I just know you do have some boards that are favorable. Can the Spirit clear its board? It used to, and it used to depending on the adversary. But now with Warrior, you really lost a lot of that high power damage. So the ability to do that is going to be quite diminished. Um, it's such a shame. I mean, this is one of the final nerfs to Warrior, or it was one of the final nerfs of the expansion. So we didn't have much time to playtest this at the end. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say. It's just very disappointing. Looking at number 48, we have Shadows Flicker Like Flame, Darkfire Aspect. This is the last Shadows aspect, and this is another Ani aspect. And we just talked about something that was very disappointing with Warrior. Darkfire is the complete opposite. I absolutely love it for Shadows. It's going to give you this permanent moon fire element that you get every turn, and then it allows your presence to be immortal. Your presence cannot be destroyed. Well, it says the first time each action would destroy your presence. So unless you're losing multiple presence from a single action, basically your presence won't be destroyed. And you get to start with an extra card. This aspect is so much for shadows, and I'm so happy that Eric was able to purposefully give shadows a straight up buff. I think it improves the playability, makes the spirit a lot more interesting to play, and I love it. So let's talk about the consistency. So because you get this extra element, it means you're going to be hitting this tier 2 a lot easier, which is just it's huge. It's huge for the spirit because um, it allows you to be more flexible with the cards that you're playing. In addition, you get another card in your hand, which is going to either delay your reclaim cycle, give you another card to forget for payment events, and you can support the team. So the consistency on this spirit just goes through the roof with this aspect. Matchups across all level 6 adversaries. I'm sure it's better than base. I'm not sure if it's always better than foreboding. Um, like I said earlier, you're always hitting that second tier, or it's gonna be a lot easier to hit that second tier of the innate. So you're gonna be generating more fear, disrupting more explorers easier. So I'm sure your matchups have improved. I need more games with Darkfire, so I can't really give you guys the exact information, or I'm not as confident in what I'm saying. But I've seen this aspect play a lot. I've seen it played by other players, and I've seen the spirit be successful. Number of spirit combos. I've seen this spirit combo quite well, and that's because you have Unquenchable Flame, which is giving out Badlands to the other team, but also you're always hitting the second tier. So you're always disrupting two builds. Well, I shouldn't say always, but most adversaries you are. You're playing against like Sweden, and you have like, for instance, here You have these two lands. Well, now you disrupt both of those builds because you're able to hit this innate easier. So you can give out that disruption to another board. Ability, so number of high power spirit combos. I'm not sure this has any, but jury is still out. Ability to tank, not sure Shadows can tank. It's more of a control spirit. We've already talked about support, tanking, ability to carry or take over the game. This is not a spirit that's going to be able to do that. This is more of a tempo niche spirit. How much blight does the spirit take? You're still going to be taking a lot of blight, at least 3 plus, but at least you can support the team and you can enable more combos. The ability to create isolation pockets, this is through the roof because you're hitting this innate a lot easier. How much fear does the spirit generate? Quite a lot. Looking at your cards, you got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 fear on your cards, plus about 2 from the innate. That's like 11 fear. Pretty absurd. Is the spirit edge case proved? Nope, it's not. This is a spirit that gets edge cased a lot. Extra ravages from like hardworking settlers. Maybe you get a bad event that because you're flipping the blight card a lot of times, you get those bad blighted events. This is a spirit that really can't fight through those edge cased events. How many boards are viable for the spirit? I don't have enough information to answer this question. And can the spirit clear its board? Nope. Nope, it cannot. Overall, I'm really happy with what they did with Darkfire. I just a major facelift for Shadows, and who knows? Maybe the spirit might reach B tier when I get more games with it. Looking at number 47 here, we have Violence. Violence is another bringer aspect, and I think it's amazing for bringer. This is such an exciting aspect because it's definitely a buff to the spirit, and it's going to play into your damage effects, this innate here. So you're going to lose that left innate, and your fear on your special rule is going to be increased by +1 for explorers and towns, and you're also going to get double the card plays. But those card plays can only be used for damage or destruction effects. You're going to lose your Dahan movement card, and you're going to gain Bat Scout. Violence generates so much fear. It's going to throw that fear bar on this backside through the roof. But you're going to lose that support element on that left innate, and you're going to lose your ability to move Dahan around. Overall, it has better matchups across the board. It's way more consistent than Basebringer. It generates way more fear than Basebringer, but it does lose out on that ability to give out that consistent support, and it tends to warp the whole island around itself. It's very similar to Ocean in a way, where when you're playing with Ocean, you have to play to Ocean. If you're not playing to Ocean, you're going to likely lose the game. Violence is the same way because you're not killing buildings. Same thing with Basebringer. You're not killing those cities. So likely you're going to have to win towards that tear victory, which is warping the whole team to win or to at least push for that tear victory as well. Overall, I think Violence is a lot of fun to play. I think it's an excellent addition to Bringer and a great aspect. And finally, number 46, we have Shifting Memory with the Mentor aspect. We started the video with memory, and we're also ending the video with memory. Mentor aspect is going to replace that right innate, and it's going to give us this new special rule where it says whenever we gain cards, we're going to gain 2 cards instead of 1, but we don't get to draft. It's just 2 cards from the top of the deck. In addition, it's giving us this right innate, which allows us to give cards that we have to other spirits. And you then can pay elements to have that spirit put that card into play, and then you can also have that spirit repeat that card as well. I rate Mentor better than base memory because you're able to give other spirits cards, you're able to delay reclaim cycles and also give the team the exact card they need. I think Mentor is just a straight up buff compared to base memory. The only thing that Mentor kind of struggles with compared to base memory is base memory gets to draft for majors, while Mentor doesn't. Because you're only getting two cards instead of one out of four, you're getting just two flat. So it's a little bit more RNG heavy. But if you're playing Mentor on a team of 6 players, you'll be able to kind of give which spirits the exact card they need. So you're going to increase the number of spirit combos, but you're going to reduce your consistency as well as your matchups across all of the level 6 adversaries. I do think Mentor should just be the standard way of playing Memory. I hate the right innate so much on Memory, and that's the only reason why I don't play the Spirit more. And Mentor gets rid of that, and also is just very on theme with the Spirit. It's just like Ocean Deeps, where like if they just retconned Memory to just like have the built-in Mentor, I would love it. So that concludes our video. A lot of these videos are going to be on the longer end just because I'm talking through every spirit. I do have that tier list on Tierbaker. We have Mentor at the very bottom of Sea, Lightning, Ocean, River, Panda Lightning, Wind Lightning, Warrior Thunder Speaker, Darkfire Shadows, Violence Bringer, and finally the Memory Mentor. And this Memory Mentor is going to be at 46, and base memory is at 55. In the next video, we are going to be covering B tier. If you like this video, like, subscribe for more content. I will see you guys in the next video.